Hey Art, hope you're doing well. It is about end of March, beginning of April here, and of course we're still in. I feel like we're still in these cynical times, and personally, I've been trying to find where the optimism is and everything, and yeah, I felt like I had to give a take on that because I don't know. I felt like that'd be something that'd be useful in times like this. So yeah, this is a little piece about optimism in cynical times. So how are we going to look at this? Just a little brief overview. We're going to start with a bunch of isms, showing a different trend of these different cultural movements of modernism, postmodernism, neoliberalism, and metamodernism. Then we're going to pull from a bunch of quotes from these different sources that I think have helped me in the past when I've look to these kinds of stories that inspire me. So that would be like things like Star Wars or the creations of Jim Henson or Hayao Miyazaki. And we're also going to look at people who are in my life right now in my work environment. I'm going to talk about my students. And then I'm just going to conclude on something that I call planting your tree, which we'll find out more about. So what is all these isms anyway? So I felt like we had this progression here. Where modernism, we went from this modernism which was optimistic that had morality tales and fables, and we had stories based around life lessons. The culture was based around that. This is a romanticization of it, of course, but you could read it as this kind of take. And then gradually over time, after this modernism, we had more politics and more cynicism and more pessimism, and we started to view things more cynically with this endless news feed, and gradually and that was like after the post-war era in 1945 in America, in the Americas and in the Western world, and then afterwards we had politics and news and activism turned into products and commodities. So that was neoliberalism, and that's what we see with cable news and stuff in the 90s. And then after a while, we just straight up started having gossip columns and yellow journalism, and these things kind of just go in cycles, And it's easy to romanticize that the past was better than the future or the present. The past was better than the present, but these things are kind of just always cycling around. So everybody's always feeling like the past was better, but it's not always rose-tinted glasses. So anyway, but now that all that's been said, maybe we've seen that whole arc again with social media. Maybe we've had some values. We've created movements through social media. And brought awareness to issues like the Arab Spring or Black Lives Matter. But after a while, social media just feels subsumed by capitalism, and slowly over time, sometimes feels more like gossip and hearsay, like a daily tabloid times a billion. And we just see a lot of hot takes and people just getting into arguments and disagreeing and just getting overwhelmed by this flood of information that's not going anywhere, as we've seen this past Oscars with this. There's a lot of important stuff happening in the world, but people can't get over Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. But anyway, if we have people just absorbing all this news and politics and pessimism, I feel like I kind of get the sense that people don't even believe in absolute morality anymore. With all this news going on, it seems like there's easy paths towards being cynics or pessimists or moral relativists or even nihilists. And that's very discouraging. So I hope, I don't know, maybe it's actually really tough to be someone who's at least a bit of an optimist, if not a realist optimist or a realistic optimist. So what came to mind when I was thinking about all this was Star Wars, actually. Star Wars got a lot of criticisms, back then and now, and all the way till now. But when it was created originally, there was a romantic kind of optimistic intent behind it. It was Lucas's intent to respond to a world filled with pessimism, with movies like Apocalypse Now or Taxi Driver, you know, things that would say that the world was rotten to the core and that, you know, Americans lost their innocence with the Vietnam War and stuff like that. And of course, this was an American take on things, of course. The whole rest of the world was going through their own crises and whatnot as well. This is a very Western-centric kind of view. But anyway, Star Wars was trying to give this generation of Americans a new hope for optimism and a new hope for, so beg the pun, but trying to give people a new hope for a future where good can triumph over evil, and it's not all just I don't know, a world filled with pessimism and nihilism and all that. And how do we move beyond Star Wars even? I mean, some might even say Star Wars might solve things with too many explosions, too much violence, and doesn't really create alternative solutions to what are modern problems that are much more intractable. So Jim Henson would say something not in response to George Lucas specifically, but just kind of this trend of like things being solved with violence in media. So he would say something along the lines of, I know it's easier to portray a world that's filled with cynicism and anger, where problems are solved with violence. That's titillating, and it's an easy way out. What's a whole lot tougher is to offer alternatives, to present other ways conflicts can be resolved, and to show that you can have a positive impact on your world. To do that, you have to put yourself out on a limb, take chances, and run the risk of being called a do-gooder. You have to take those chances to see if those better futures are possible. However small, however actionable they might, almost inactionable they might not be, you have to take action. And yeah, those are hard problems to solve, but I don't know, you have to make an effort at least. But you know, speaking of people making efforts, we'll go to my students. I'm also inspired by my students. They're also right there with us, considering all these really tough problems of the world. They definitely feel the weight of like things like climate change and systemic racism and wealth inequality, and really kind of like I don't know, trying to make an effort to solving some small sliver of like these really tough intractable problems like mental health and things like that. But I don't know, I feel like they do feel too much pressure to solve these things in a big enough way, quote unquote. And it just makes me wonder, what is big enough? I mean, they're just students. I don't think any amount of anxiety or thinking or brainstorming by one single student is gonna come anywhere close to solving any of the world's, you know, hugest, biggest problems that even the world's most brilliant minds are trying to solve with a huge amount of resources. And the world, of course, doesn't turn on one person, much less a student who hasn't even started their career yet. And these students are also concerned about starting work after they transition out of the institution of education. So I don't think that these people are in a position to try and really, I don't know, solve any of these huge intractable problems in any simple, easy way that can be done in a few weeks in a semester. It's impossible. So I just hope they don't put so much pressure on themselves. I hope they just try to, I don't know, I want to say enjoy the process, but at least just take things one step at a time and do the best they can in their process and just try to learn something from it, not necessarily try to solve things. And yeah, maybe also enjoy the process too. So as a result, I kind of find youth as like this kind of antidote to my pessimism. I really can't stay pessimistic as someone who has a responsibility to help this next generation of people look forward to having a future in our world. I have to find it within myself to see where there's something to be optimistic about. And that's how I try to approach my work and my thoughts towards my work and future work. Here's a quote from Hayao Miyazaki. Personally, I am very pessimistic. But when, for instance, one of my staff has a baby, you can't help but bless them for a good future. Because I can't tell that child, oh, you shouldn't have come into this life. and yet I know the world is heading in a bad direction. So with those conflicting thoughts in mind, I think about what kinds of films I should be making. I think that's quite a beautiful notion, and I think that's something I try to take to heart and carry with me when I approach my work as well. There's some takeaways for myself here too. My students are teaching me also about how I have to take things one step at a time. Also, it's very easy to feel pressure to do things a certain way, but you have to take your time and deal with the task at hand. You can't just allow all the pressures of the world to weigh on you. The world's not going to weigh on one person. It's not going to depend on one person making decisions. You're not going to solve it all at once. Or even if you do, it's not going to work with you feeling that pressure and being paralyzed by it or feeling the weight of it. And I also find it highly unlikely that it's going to be one person. But anyway, the world is not going away. And also, on the grand scheme of things, the world is not going away tomorrow or the day after or the day after that. So you have to keep dealing with the concerns of today and focus on what's within reach. Plant a tree, do your small bit of work in your immediate surroundings, earn your keep, and care for one another. There's this quote that's been attributed to Martin Luther. I don't know if it's been verified, but I like the notion of it. And it goes, even if I knew that tomorrow the world would go to pieces, I would still plant my apple tree. And I don't know, that's how I've been internalizing these messages and trying to take these kinds of ideas to heart when I think about optimism in a cynical world. So yeah, that's my takeaways, and I hope that might offer some things of value to you as well. Hope you're doing well, Art. Wishing you well, and I'll see you next time. Stay soft, stay strong, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.